Hey everyone, Mr. MSA here. This is a guide for round 6 of the Nations Cup. For the time trial, I'll be using the GR Super Racing concept, whereas in the race, I'll be using the Toyota FT-1. Let's get this started. Look for the 50-meter mark as you'll brake after you pass it, and you'll be tropiking quite a bit through here. Go for a late apex and start to fully accelerate. You'll be going through these S's at full throttle. Just make sure you take advantage of the curbs to help you turn a bit more. Then look for the official stand on the right as you'll brake right before you pass it. And just like the first turn, you're going to be tropiking quite a bit, and you're also going to go for a late apex here. Make sure you don't enter the grass on the right as you'll end up losing your exit speed. Now this turn is a bit interesting. You'll brake before you reach the 100-meter mark and take advantage of the curbs up ahead. And you can get pretty deep into the apex, and when you're here on the grass, you can ease off the throttle a little bit to make sure that the car doesn't want to spin out. Then look for the riding on the ground as you'll brake when it ends. Try to be smooth on releasing the brakes so you don't end up getting any unnecessary sliding. For this part, bring yourself to the left, ease off the throttle a little bit, then brake before the curb on the right ends. And once again, you want to try to be smooth so you don't get the car to slide. Then brake at the 50-meter mark, be smooth on releasing the brakes. You can bring yourself in a bit more and gently apply the throttle, and you are good to go. Let's complete this lap, and then we'll quickly take a look at the strategies. For this race, you want to think a bit about your fuel. So you want to short shift along the way to make sure you have just enough fuel to be able to finish the race, and so you won't have to worry about refueling whenever you go into a pit stop. When it comes to the tires, this is where it gets a bit interesting, because when I was doing a couple of the practice races, I came across these 3 strategies and they gave me a similar finishing time, especially for this race that you see on the screen here. So for the first one that I observed was where you start on racing medium tires in the front, racing hard tires in the back, and then at the end of lap 7 or 8, you can then go for the racing medium tires. Don't refuel if that is possible. The second one, which is actually the one that I went with for this practice race, was where you do 2 pit stops. So you start on medium tires, then go for a new set of racing medium tires at the end of lap 6 or 7. And then around laps 12 or 13, that's when you go for the racing hard tires. And finally, under the third strategy, which is what someone else in this race went with, they started on racing hard tires. And then at the end of lap 8 or 9 in the case of this individual, they switched on over to the racing medium tires. So with these tires, the mediums tend to start to fall off around lap 5 or 6. So if you're going for 6 or 7 laps, you're going to want to be a bit careful with them, as they're going to be a lot harder to deal with. Whereas with racing hard tires, I mean, of course, they're not going to have the best pace, but you can stay with them for much longer, which means that you don't have to worry about going to the pit stop for a bit longer. So you want to try to take care of your tires to make sure that they last as long as you can. So if you need the grip, you can definitely get it. You don't end up understeering. And also another thing is that with the second strategy, it's going to be a bit of a gamble. So when you're on the racing medium tires, you have to push as much as you can. You have to get a much better pace than those in the first and the third strategy, because even though you're in the pit stop for about 10 seconds each, I mean, it adds up to 20 seconds for the second strategy, and that can still be enough for those in the first and the third strategy to end up catching up to you. In this race, that's what I went with. I went with the second strategy, and second and third place, were able to catch up to me because I pitted one more time than they did. So once again, the second strategy is a bit of a gamble, but it is possible to pull it off. But I would go with the first or the third strategy depending on what your preferences are. And once again, try not to refuel. Save a bit of fuel by short shifting. you don't really have to adjust the fuel mapping. I didn't adjust it in this race. And yeah, so that's all for this guide. Hope you find it useful. This is Mr. MCA wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.